Read.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
Very simple question. Is curses a good thing or a bad thing? Curses. It said if you don't do what God says, all these curses are going to come upon thee and overtake thee. It's a bad thing. It's a bad thing, right? It's a bad thing. Let's get one of the curses that you said you already are familiar with. Read, verse 68.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again.
So God is saying, remember, they just came out of Egypt. They just walked through the Red Sea, let my people go because they was in hard bondage. That's what we was in. Now he says, I'm going to send you back to that place. But he's not talking about the physical place, right? Why? Read. No, read it again. Read it, verse 68 again.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
How?
With ships.
How did our people come to the shores of America? With ships. Now what you got to understand is that when it uses Egypt right there, it's talking about the conditions that our people is in. Now get to this point. It's talking about the conditions our people is in. When they came out of Egypt, they were slaves. When we came to America, we were slaves. But how did we get here? The mode of transportation? With ships. Now here's $1 million question, brother. What other nation of people can say that that happened to them other than us? Not one.
Right.
Not one, brother.
Right.
But what are we reading? We're reading the Bible that just identified black history.
Right.
This thing really happened. But what are we reading? The Bible. We're reading the Bible.
Right.
But we've not been shown this all our lives. I grew up in a Christian church. I've never seen that. But the Bible says we are the children of Israel. Why? Because of the curses that were placed on our people. I'm going to prove that Egypt is slavery. Read that.
The book of Exodus, chapter 20 and verse 2. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage.
So Egypt is synonymous for what? House of bondage, right? Bondage is another word for captivity, or another word for slavery. Right. Follow? So go back to 28:68. Read it from the top all the way through.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again.
Said that when you go into slavery, we're not going to see our homeland again. Which is why when I asked you where's a country called black, you said, I don't know. Because we don't know where our homeland is. But we the only people like that. You ask a Chinese man where his homeland, he gonna say China and look at you like you crazy.
Right.
You ask a Filipino man where his homeland from, Philippines, like it's obvious. You ask a black man where he's from, he might say Alabama. He might say Detroit. He might say Philly. But is that really where we're from? No, it's not. No, it's not. The Bible is identifying who we are because we've lost our identity. When? When we came across on cargo slave ships. No longer will we called the children of Israel. Now we're called Negroes. Now we're called niggas. Now we're called blacks. Today we're called African Americans.
Right.
These things only happen to us.
Right.
A Chinese man 50 years ago, guess what he was called? A Chinese man. We was called something else. What are we reading? The Bible. Read.
Thou shalt see it no more again. And
there, once you get off these ships, there,
he shall be sold unto your enemy.
you shall be what?
Sold unto your enemy.
This is another differentiating or difference between what anyone else can claim to the history. It says once you get off those cargo slave ships, then you're going to be auctioned off. I just came back from Memphis, Tennessee. I've seen the corners where they used to have slave auctions. It's historical fact. But what are we reading? We're reading Bible. We're reading the Bible and identifying our history to this day.
Can we have one?
Why are we the only people that have to have a movement to identify ourselves as human beings? To say Black Lives Matter. Why do we have to have that? Because we're the only nation on earth that lost everything. We lost everything.